Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Konkering Pod. We're back, baby. It is Tom and I today.
Good to be here.
And Maddie's away. She is on holiday. It's holiday season. It's middle of August, so
Maddie's had all of August off.
nothing to be unexpected.
Maddie's been in for 4 days in August.
Yeah, fair play to her.
It's more than that, but it feels like that.
We have got something a little bit different today. We're starting off a slightly different series. We are very much at the start of our podcasting journey, and to be honest, we enjoy doing it, don't we?
Yeah.
So there is very much still a case of working these things out. We've got the Konkering Pod with our interviews. We have got the recruitment series. We've got the marketing series, which, to be honest, is slowly coming towards an end, I think. The marketing side of things.
We're getting to like the limit of our knowledge of some of that, aren't we? Like, we are not experts.
So. And we're very much speaking on experience, and we're not very experienced with like the marketing side of things, are we? So we thought we'd come together, us two, obviously, and just tell our story. I think, it's almost as simple as that, isn't it?
Just talk about the day-to-day goings on.
Yeah. So, podcast coming out every couple of weeks, tell our story. We're running a business here, we're running a podcast. There's lots of different things that go around that. We like to think we're doing things slightly differently in terms of maybe like the services we offer recruitment-wise, but also the media side of things, which again is very much the unknown for us, but actually really fun and really exciting. So we just want to speak from experience. And why do we want to do that?
Well, I think that first, like you said, we enjoy it. It's actually quite fun for us to sit down and have these conversations. I think we actually get a lot out of these conversations sometimes as well. Like, we spark new ideas or come up with new things that we want to be doing. But I do think some people would take some value from it. Just hearing from other people's experience, what's gone wrong, what's gone right, what we're doing differently, what challenges are we facing, like all of those bits and pieces can actually add quite a lot of value.
And there's, with this, we're going to try and be we are going to be genuine. We're going to be as genuine as possible.
And vulnerable.
And vulnerable, sure. Well, we're going to start crying. But there's only so much we can sort of say, isn't there, in terms of like disclosing certain particulars, all that sort of stuff. But, we'd like to think that, a lot of this is what we've learned, every couple of weeks, what we're doing every couple of weeks, what we're going to do, that sort of thing, and maybe help other people on their sort of paths, on their journeys, that sort of thing as well. Yeah.
So for anyone that doesn't know, why don't you give a bit of backstory to who Konker is, what Konker is?
We'll do it. Well, Konker, we're a recruitment business.
Yeah.
Started off specifically recruiting in the built environment, quite architecture heavy. Do a lot of sustainability, M&E, engineering, building services. We have slightly new divisions now that have been sort of added on over the last year or so, doing a lot of sales and marketing, recruitment, working with some really amazing local businesses, but across the country, from Plymouth all the way up to bloody Newcastle. And Dick, as Kerr would say. And we're doing events recruitment in London, which the last couple of weeks has taken off. That's been an absolute roller coaster, hasn't it? That's for sure. The event side of things. But shout out to Rory, who's doing it and sort of spearheading events.
Lovely phrase.
He's doing a brilliant job and things are starting to take off. So yeah, looking good there. Sales, sustainability and renewables, doing a bit more of that. Renewables market is in a bit of a funny place at the moment, but there's certainly some good jobs coming in there. Doing a lot of solar, a little bit of ESG, wind, again, difficult to break into. So that is a slow burner, really.
A lot of opportunity there in the long term, though.
Loads of opportunity. I do feel like the whole sustainability hype has actually died down in the last year, though.
Yeah, it's quietened, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe we'll move on to that. What else do? We do engineering and technical division as well, which is a little bit more general engineering and technical, sort of technical jobs. Maybe more so like manufacturing, on-site, CNC, that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
and that's across the country.
Nice.
So that's the recruitment business.
That's the recruitment business. Next question somebody might have for you then is, why is a recruitment business doing a podcast?
Because we just love it. Yeah, that's a good question. Number one, it's good fun. I'm just going to move this around here. That might be a bit easier. We're podcasters, aren't we? In the sense that we listen to a lot of podcasts.
Consume a lot of podcasts.
Yeah. And I feel like at the moment in this day and age, it's such a good medium for, taking in information and learning. You can do two things at once with a podcast, can't you?
Yeah.
Reading, I know you're a bit more of a reader, or you are a reader, but reading's, I find reading really difficult.
It's not for everyone, is it?
No, a lot of people find it difficult. A lot of people find it easy, but we've done a lot of podcasts. We've got a lot from podcasts. But also from a very selfish point of view, there's an awful lot of content we can create off the back of these sort of things, isn't there?
Yeah. I think we see it as a very long-term play, don't we? Very long-term marketing, brand awareness, strategy.
I don't think we'll ever stop doing this sort of podcasting and stuff, regardless of how well it does for us as well, because one, we enjoy it. Two, like you say, it's sometimes a really good reflection, like sessions. But meeting and interviewing new people, again, it's really fun, but you just learn so much from that as well.
Yeah.
And from a selfish point of view, it's a constant source of marketing for our business as well.
Yeah.
And from an individual point of view too. So, I get a lot of video to chuck on, you get a lot of video to chuck on, social media, that sort of thing.
And you've got to look at it from that standpoint. I had a comment on a LinkedIn post recently saying that very few podcasts ever make any money. And yeah, I completely agree from like a direct impact on revenue standpoint. But you've just got to look at it as such a bigger picture than that. So much longer term. There's so much more value that is to be found.
So what sort of value are people going to get from this sort of series then?
Ooh, I don't know. No, what they're going to get from this series, they are going to get a real look under the bonnet of a business that is actually trying to grow, that is ambitious, that wants to be doing things slightly differently, and is going to make mistakes along the way, but hopefully get a few things right along the way. And yeah, it's just going to be very, very like direct view into a company that is actually trying to achieve some stuff.
I think there are a lot of podcasts out there, a lot of businessy podcasts, aren't there, that meet people who have already done really well.
Yeah.
And have already grown a really big business and are, they obviously know an awful lot about what they're doing. I totally get that, but they're always looking at things from hindsight sort of thing, aren't they, really?
Yeah.
But like, we are in the trenches at the moment, and we're very much at the start of where we want the business to be. We're 5% of where we hope to be, maybe. So that's a completely different perspective, isn't it? We are very much, on the ground, on the tools, very much doing this podcast, still recruiting ourselves.
Yeah.
Which is great fun and a burden at the same time. But I think, if you want to sort of listen to a really relatable podcast about what it's like to run a small to medium sized business that is trying to grow, that is trying to muscle its way through the other sort of bigger businesses and the other podcasts, then, you're probably going to get a lot of value of some real world application rather than the bigger podcasts, which is all hindsight. And I don't know how to explain it, but it's quite like macro advice. It's like the big stuff, isn't it? It's all quite generic.
Yeah, macro is a great way to do it. It's a very top level view of a finished product or like very specific areas where, I guess what we're going to talk about are just such small things that we're trying to do differently, or things that we've got going on. And if nothing else, it's good for like my mum to listen into and actually hear about what we're up to.
Just going back to that sustainability point, I know it's completely off subject. We've not scheduled this, but having thought about it then, and again, it's such a good reason why I'm talking about this stuff, but I don't know if it's my bubble, but has like the sustainability and the ESG hype completely taken a dive the last 6 months? And the reason why I think it might have is because when things are going well, companies can afford to bring in and pay $100,000 for an ESG person.
Yeah.
That some of the time might be there just to say they've got an ESG person.
Yeah.
They might do some great things. They've got a bit of money to spend on a DEI person. But now, like the last 6 months have actually been fairly turbulent. I know certainly, on our sustainability and renewables division, things have slowed down quite a bit. So is that very much just a luxury in a good economy, that sort of thing at the moment?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a luxury, but I guess that certain things end up taking precedent over. It's tricky, isn't it? Because there'll be some sustainability businesses and some businesses that sustainability is like the most important thing and the most prevalent thing that they're speaking about right now. So it probably is part of your bubble as well.
Yeah, I think it probably is. Okay, what's the structure of this podcast going to be then? Quite honestly, not sure.
Well, I just think we should just bit of a recap every couple of weeks, look back at what we've done, what we've learned, what we've been up to, different people that we've met, ideas that we've had, things that we've tried that have gone wrong, things that we've tried that have gone right, and just
important lessons.
What's the phrase? Shoot the breeze. Shoot the breeze. Just shoot the breeze.
That sounds good. Okay, go on then. You start.
Yeah, it was. I'll start then. So stuff that we've been up to over the last couple of weeks. I think what's probably worth mentioning is like the media side of things straight off the bat, because we sort of spoke about the recruitment side of the business, and then we spoke about the podcast that we've been doing. And anyone that follows anything we've done might have seen that we've sort of launched Konker Media at the same time. And that again is probably raises question marks, like what's media necessarily got to do with a recruitment business?
Certainly a lot of friends that have come to me and just spoken about the Instagram. Like, what is it?
Yeah. Yeah. What are you doing?
Hello, another Instagram.
Yeah. So again, like we've not necessarily planned this out to its entirety or exactly know the direction that it's going to go in, but the idea ties into something that I've been reading about recently called like a blue ocean strategy. Have I told you about this?
That's a buzzword.
Have I told you about this?
You've mentioned it.
I mentioned it. So the idea is, it's a really good book, but a blue ocean strategy is every business and every company works, operates and lives in a red bloody ocean of competition. And the blue ocean strategy is the idea that you create your own blue ocean of opportunity by either innovating through the value that you offer or innovating through the product that you give or service that you deliver. And we've literally had the conversation for probably like 3 years about how we partner with business on a recruitment standpoint. We place people into jobs. That's like the bread and butter of what we do, but we've always wanted to add so much more value or do something differently and be able to be seen as more like a partner to a business that we're working with.
I think it's probably what like a lot of business owners go through, isn't it? Like, how can you do something differently? Yeah. And how can you be like at the start of the curve of doing something slightly different?
Because recruitment's been the same for how long?
Yeah. I think there's a reason why it's been the same for that long, because I think the model works.
Yeah.
But it is quite stagnant, isn't it? You know, there's this bit of technology that's come into it, but there hasn't been many big changes.
There's no like real innovation.
No.
So yeah, the idea was that we would actually start partnering with the businesses that we recruit for to help them enhance their employer brand. And one of the main reasons that we wanted to do that is because we kind of went through that ourselves.
And we've spoken about this an awful lot.
Spoken about this ourselves, opened up a really big window into the company and sort of become a magnet for recruiters and good talent in Exeter. So we wanted to replicate that and start offering that as more of a service to the companies that we work with, partner for the long term, actually help them build so much value in the business that they just attract the right people that they're looking for, because recruitment's so expensive.
And that's the long-term goal, isn't it, with that?
That's the long-term goal with that. So that's where the idea of the media came around. We wanted to start partnering with companies using audio, video to properly represent a brand and attract people to them. So that's where Konker Media came around. And we got...
But Konker Media, quite a broad church, isn't it, you know, in terms of services we can offer?
Well, yeah. So we got Pat that joined just over 6 months ago, and we got consumed a lot by doing a lot of the podcasts. Like that ended up taking up loads more time than we ever thought it would.
It's a right old journey,
especially when we were trying to do like a guest every week. That was too much.
Savage.
So that was taking up loads of time. So media wasn't going as fast as we might have first expected it to, but we were really like finding our feet with the way that what equipment we need, how we're going to edit certain things, workflows and different processes that we want. And Pat, to be fair to him,
how have you found it?
Bloody great.
Bloody great. It has been a lot though, isn't it?
The last week's been pretty mental.
The last 6 months, haven't they?
Yeah, the last 6 months.
Well, we've learned a lot, haven't we? That's for sure. And it's been
loads.
so much more of a process and a journey than we ever thought it might be. That's fair to say.
Yeah.
We looking back, we were massively naive, I think.
Yeah.
In the sense of how much effort and time these things take.
Yeah.
Pat, maybe not so much yourself because you understand these things a lot more, but
No,
that's what. But that's why you're here. But like, just from a podcast point of view, we started off with one of these cameras with, you know, not even a tripod.
Yeah.
Didn't we? You know,
what was it on? I can't even remember.
It was a tripod. It's a ring light. There it is.
Oh yeah, the little ring light.
Barely even stands up. But from like that, Maddie and I sitting in here on 2 chairs with one camera,
One microphone.
one take, one microphone sat in the middle, recording the same podcast 4 times to try and get it right because you have to do it in one take. Fucking mental. To like where we are now, we've actually progressed things so flipping quickly, haven't we?
Yeah.
And there's been so much learning within that. So, we're on a great trajectory with it, but we were a bit unaware of how much effort these things sort of take as well, and like the production that goes into it.
Yeah, the production's such a big part of it. Just like marrying up audio and video, like getting syncing the two. And I remember in the early days of Maddie trying to download like a free editing software, and as soon as you uploaded the video into the computer, it was just like, no,
it's
crashed.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, Pat, to be fair to him, yeah, absolute revelation for all of this stuff. Like, wouldn't have been able to do it without the expertise that he's brought, and
Maddie as well.
She's
done a lot of the less technical
definitely
editing side of things. Side of that.
So yeah, I've lost my trail of thought there, but that's what we're doing with the media, and that's where it's got to. And you mentioned about it being very broad in terms of the services that media can and will offer, and I think that's sort of come around because as soon as we started having conversations with people about video and creating content, lots of people saw value in it in different ways,
and people want different things, don't they?
People want different things,
very much so. And people want different things. People want to pay different amounts to start off with. We're working with completely different businesses, and one thing doesn't work for every business, does it? So it's very much a tailored approach. What things have we done off the back of that?
So
far,
the very first thing we done, I think it was on Pat's like 4th day with us or 2nd day with us, 3rd day with us. Nearly got it.
I can't remember. What's this going to be?
That's when we went and done Structure House podcast.
Oh yeah.
First.
God, that was deep end stuff, wasn't it?
First podcast on the road.
Yeah.
And it was brilliant. Like, Mark and all the team at Structure House were really welcoming for us. We had a nice little setup. It ended up being a really good podcast. There was, so much we've actually changed in what we do from that first podcast as well. There's like so much of it we do differently. The setup now would be completely different. But while we were there at the same time, they let us have a bit of a practice and a trial run working with some of their team and actually capturing some video. So that was a really good starting point for us because, again, we learned loads there, had all the wrong equipment, got a completely different camera now. Again, would do things all differently. But yeah, off the back of that, it slowly developed into doing more podcasts with different people. We've just recently gone down to the Samphire Club. So Samphire Club is John Harvey's networking group. We went down to shoot some video last minute. He emailed us on a Wednesday at 3:00 saying, can you come down tomorrow afternoon to capture some content for their summer party? So we've gone down to do that. We're doing a 10-year anniversary shoot for Avalon Planning and Heritage in Exeter. And we've got some really exciting conversations going on with some other local businesses about more ongoing partnerships. So it's early days of that, but we've had some really good conversations with different companies about, the value that they could get from video and what
again, also different, isn't it?
So different.
All such like different bits and bobs that go into it.
Yeah.
But we've got the tools now. We've got definitely like the creativity behind it in terms of what sort of things we can offer.
And then the other part is actually podcasting. Like, we've had a few people come on the podcast and they see value in and would love to have like their own conversations and host their own podcast and host their own conversations. So we're speaking to people about stuff like that as well, because we're now in a position that we've got the production facility and know-how to work with people to produce their own podcast, and they get a lot of value from that. So that's kind of in the works as well. But there's so much going on there. But it's just a case of start delivering on some of the things that we want to do, really.
It's a process, isn't it? Like we said, it's been a process the whole time. It's slowly building.
But what I've seen so soon is that there is such a market for media and creating content and video. There's such a demand there for it.
It's one of those things where you can think it's really easy to do. I think we maybe did.
Oh, 100%. Wow. So again, we've just recently had a meeting with, it's more of an acquaintance than actually know him, but it's a guy that runs quite a well-known and really successful recruitment business in Exeter. And we connected and he wanted to have a conversation about the podcast and had a few questions about that. So went and met him, and it was really interesting because one of the main things that he wanted to ask was sort of how much work goes into doing a podcast, and is it an hour and a half once a week of like record for an hour, half an hour to put it together?
Bit more than that.
But no, so it just goes to show that somebody else thought, how much work actually goes into that.
Yeah.
And like there is so much that goes into it.
How much goes into it then? What's the hardest part of doing it, do you think?
Hardest part of doing a pod?
For you?
For me, I'm pretty hands off now, to be honest. So it's not too much for me. But I think that the hardest part in the early days, or when I look back, was equipment, first and foremost. Audio quality has been a bit of a process for us. Just working out the best setup for a guest and not having loads of banging going on in the background or loads of clipping of the audio or loads of pop sounds. So yeah, the audio has been a real process, and that's probably still going to be developing even to this day as well. And I guess off the back end of that, there's actual time constraints of how much time you're going to put into cleaning up audio and video and doing a post-production, because, Pat can easily sink in several hours into editing up a podcast, producing clips and producing all the content. So yeah, I'd say that. I'd say getting the setup right and then managing the time that you actually put in post podcast, because it's costing money at the end of the day.
For me, the hardest, I mean, there's a few hard bits, to be honest. It's none of it's easy, but like scripting has been tough. Actually working that out. Yeah. And even now it's still difficult. And like, I think some people maybe like underestimate not how difficult it is, but like, how difficult it is to maybe have like conversations. And we do things a bit more off the cuff now. We've got our own bullet points, that sort of stuff. We went quite stringent to start off with, but if you're really engaged and really listening, it's sometimes quite difficult to like actually steer the conversation in the right direction without feeling a little bit robotic, and sometimes actually being able to get the right sort of stuff. That's certainly where it helps with having two people. But even sort of further, that's a process as well. We're starting to find our feet with that a lot more now, Maddie and I, which is good. But to start off with, actually selling the podcast to get people on it without having done any.
Yeah.
That was flipping hard. Even like 5 or 6 in, when you had stuff to like show, like people are actually a bit scared.
Letter phase, didn't you? Sending out handwritten letters.
I'll probably go through that phase again, but it did actually work. But not everyone's keen to come on a podcast.
It's daunting, isn't it?
You'll be surprised. And especially one which is a little bit unknown. So like actually getting started with that was really tough. And I just viewed all my wins basically at the start of the year were just getting people on the podcast. That was really tough. And like it wasn't just one conversation. Yeah, okay, I'll come on, we'll have a chat, blah, blah, because it's in person. They got to come here. You got to find local people. We're actually trying to get loads of content out of this rather than it just being over the laptop sort of thing. And I understand why people do it over the laptop, because it's that much easier, but you don't get as much in terms of clips, content, face to face, that sort of thing. And with relationships, you can build so much more relationships with that. So it was very different, very different.
Yeah. Well, yeah, look at some of the relationships that we built off the back of doing the pod already. We've had some really interesting conversations with different business leaders and different sort of public figures or prevalent figures throughout Exeter in the Southwest. So, and that's just after 6 months of doing it.
Yeah. What else have we done the last couple of weeks?
What else have we done the last couple of weeks? Well, the Samphire Club stuff was interesting. So we went down to that, and I just had a couple of thoughts off the back of the Samphire Club that I thought would be worth sharing, or I thought you might find interesting as well. But first and foremost, like Southwest businesses are underrated, or just like the Southwest business scene is underrated.
Cool.
Well, I feel like there's actually so many really interesting companies out there and people doing some really big things. So like there was just a handful of people that we spoke to at this first event. There was one lady and she ran, I can't remember what the company's called, but they run a video animation business based out in Plymouth. They do all sorts of different video animation for different businesses. And one of the people they do work for is James Martin's Saturday Kitchens. They do all of the pre and sort of post animation for that TV show. So
that's peculiar.
So random, but like really interesting business. Interestingly, they spoke about recruitment and how hard it is to get graduates from like Falmouth University. They want to go off to London and work in London instead.
Yeah, that is the vibe at the moment, isn't it? That's for sure.
So like a really interesting conversation with her was how businesses need to educate university students that there are good opportunities in the Southwest. So they're a really cool company. Met this other guy called John Cooksley of AdMaps. So this is a company, if you go on holiday down in Cornwall to any hotel.
This is great.
And you get one of those maps that you fold out and it's got like an animated or illustrated map on it of all like the hotspots and good locations to go to. But I love that. Get back to the
Yeah.
hotel room, open up the map,
Yeah.
have a good look through. But anyway, he does basically all of the maps for Cornwall. So over 400,000 maps a year, all of Cornwall. It was just the husband and wife team plus one other person. And they've been doing that for 12 years. And that just got me thinking that there's two ends of the spectrum here, because a lot of our like growth and ambition is predicated on the amount of people that we can bring into the business. Being a recruitment company, to generate more revenue, really, you need
Headcount's quite a big one, isn't it?
Whereas for him, it was just husband and wife team and one other, and they've run a successful business for 12 years doing that. So I found that really interesting. And then, I guess the last thing is just like, I thought about the network effects of networking or being part of a networking group. Like, we spoke to a lot of people and they said that the value that they get from networking isn't necessarily from the immediate group and people that they meet there. It's all the second, third and fourth connections that they're friends with.
I think that's what we learned, isn't it, when we did the podcast with John, Mr. Samfire, is that, well, yeah, exactly that. It's indirect connections, isn't it? You form a really good group, and what's nice about their little club or group that they've got is that they are all givers. They all want to give as much as possible, don't they? Really friendly as well. But that's such a nice way of doing things, because usually you go to a networking group to take, don't you? But the more you give, the more gets given to you
back around,
as well. It always comes back around. And I definitely see that as, this networking group that they've got in particular, and networking now is very much about the indirect connections and sort of relationships you can make and sort of results or sales you can make off the back of that. But yeah, you've definitely done a lot more than me in the last couple of weeks.
Well, yeah, this other meeting that I had with the chap that I mentioned that runs another recruitment business in Exeter. So they're a bigger company than us. They've been going for longer than us. They have more of a market share probably than us in their industry, and just much more established. But we had like an hour and a half conversation, and we spoke about the podcast, and we just spoke about loads of other stuff as well. And what was really interesting is that for a bigger, more established business that you would imagine and perceive to have its house in order, they were still just going through really similar things to us in terms of like process, like how to grow internally, like different review and different training that they want to offer, the progression opportunities for the team. So it just really like made it apparent to me that so many companies are probably in a really similar place of actually just constantly figuring stuff out and trying to refine the process and make things better internally, despite what it looks like from the outside, which we've been going through, haven't we, with our training and like what we've been trying to figure out loads over the last 6 months. Things have changed for us
so much in the 6 months. Yeah, it's interesting to hear that, definitely. But you can always look like a really good business and not necessarily be a really good business from the inside, can't you? That's and vice versa.
Vice versa. What have we been doing training-wise?
Training-wise, definitely something I've been working on quite heavily the last, 3 or 4 months. And to be honest, I still don't feel like I'm up to speed with it, just because I maybe haven't had the time to put into it. But yeah, a few things I've written down here of what I've learned maybe over the last sort of 2, 3, 4 weeks and really got to grips with about having sort of from having sort of more of a team is like just the quality of like input and training and getting people up to speed. I don't know, started my career, and I think it's quite easy to go into recruitment thinking like there's a lot of luck and like, that person's really good because he's really lucky. And it's just like, no, that another placement's just fallen into place. But like, once you realize that recruitment is just all about like skill and sales is all about skill, and you move to that mindset, you can actually start like really training those sort of things. And now I can notice the difference between, and I think I could, but now I really can notice the difference between a really good recruiter and a recruiter that's, just plodding through recruitment and having some lucky deals sort of fall in sort of thing. So like we've recently joined Hector, which is Hisham's recruitment mentors training platform, which has been great. I mean, you haven't seen so much of that, to be totally honest, have you?
I haven't seen so much of that, but I've like consumed so much of the content through the podcast. Yeah. So the Recruitment Mentors podcast, I know that a lot of like the really experienced recruiters or the high performers, and that's not necessarily even just like the really experienced, but it's the people that are just performing at a really high level within their niche. A lot of them then deliver the training and So consumed a lot of the content just through the podcast as
So
well.
instead of it being just one person teaching, what they've learned throughout their career, it's loads of people, isn't it? He gets all these people on the Recruitment Mentors podcast. If you're a recruiter and you haven't listened to it, listen to it because it's great. It offers so much insight about how to run a recruitment business, how to run a desk, how to, get better at this. But on the training platform, it's, for consultants to use. They can jump into it, do whatever they want. It's got all of these different sort of master classes, all these different training programs which they can jump on. And, we did it. We jumped on board with it. We realized obviously the importance of having really good inputs and maximizing your outputs from that, but it's just like the regularity of it, of being able to train that sort of stuff. Instead of doing big training sessions every 3-4 months where you do a whole day and you try and learn all this sort of stuff on one part of the process, we're training every week now, doing half an hour to an hour, just drip drab, little different things in there. Yeah, they're really great. They send you sort of recruitment programs or like certain bits which are specific to the consultant's needs, or, I can go in and work that out with the consultant, put together a program, and they can just complete it in their own time or do it sort of in the allocated time. We then have a catch-up session after and go through it all properly and sort of go from there. So that's been really, really useful. I'd like to think the guys and girls have definitely got on board with that massively. But that's really helped.
And that's cool. And literally from a Blue Ocean strategy standpoint, Hisham and Hector that he's created,
so different.
He's gone from recruitment training has very much been, or that as a service, recruitment training services has very much been, one-man bands potentially, or businesses delivering training at scale quite often, maybe in face, maybe in person, one-off training sessions on just one particular topic, or always delivered in a very similar way. And it's got a bit of a stigma, I suppose, of training being delivered by people that recruited a long time ago, training on the same methods.
When it's all changed so flipping much. Technology.
So,
the only opposition, I suppose, to Hisham and Hector, I don't know if this is absolutely right, but it's recruitment juice, isn't it? So if you put them both side by side, recruitment juice, I think it's big. It's all quite automated. Yes, you do have like an individual mentor, that sort of thing, to the best of my knowledge. But, with Hector, there are so many different ways of training. So it's like video, tick boxes, just normal exercises that you can do. But it's done by like a different person who's like a specialist in their field every single time.
Yeah.
Which is really, really good. And they've come on and spent their own time sort of trying to train the next generation of recruiters.
Yeah, I feel like recruitment juice is maybe just a little bit more academic. That's how maybe I view it.
Yeah.
Whereas Hector is much more people that are there doing it now. This is what's working for them. And it's really good for being able to take little bits and pieces from different people's style, because what works for one person might not necessarily work for the next person. So it's really nice to be able to get a flavor of different approaches. So yeah.
And I think what's like great about Hector is they're quite a small team, but like Hisham, he does spend a lot of time trying to like evolve and change.
And he's spent time trying to help us like improve like business and our process as well.
And all that sort of like back office side of things. And to be honest, I probably haven't been in the best place personally to keep up with him, but like he's the one that's always pushing for this. Like he can do so much for a business. So yeah, really worth looking at. It's been great for the consultants, great for the business, and just to have different points of view from different businesses, listening to the podcast and actually understanding all the back office bits and bobs. The consultants' work has been really good for regular training, because I think sometimes you can. Well, I think regular short and sharp training is so much better than like big just efforts every now and then, isn't it?
Yeah, I totally agree.
That's what's been really interesting about that. And, I know the consultants have got on really well from it. And I think sometimes with training, it's just good to hear people's different points of view and then sort of adapt it and apply it to your own sort of circumstance.
Yeah. And we've also been doing training, just actual sales training, haven't we? With like, what's the company called?
Air Marketing.
They've been delivering actual just sales training for a few people there. And I guess that's almost come around because we got Ash into the business, and Ash is
salesman,
just a real salesman, just from a real sales background. And then he's been working recruitment for the last few years, but you can tell that he's an out and out salesperson, and all of those skills and experiences that he's picked up from different positions in different industries before is so transferable to recruitment. So seeing a lot of value in that.
So a couple of the more younger consultants, I suppose, or the people that are on desks which do require a little bit more BD and a sales approach. they're on a sales course, which is quite a generic sales course. It's not specific to recruitment as such, is it? But again, all of those sort of skills and negotiation and sort of BD, picking up the phone, those techniques have been really, really useful for everybody there. And that's a Marco that's doing that, isn't he? I don't know him personally, but
I don't know if he actually delivers the training, actually. I think it's somebody else that delivers the training.
Is it?
Yeah.
I thought it was Marco.
Nah, somebody else, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, well, Air Marketing, they're doing quite well.
Yeah, check them out.
Yeah.
I'm literally about to sneeze.
We got a sneezer.
Pat's gone for
We
a
got a
sneeze.
sneezer.
Well, let's wrap it up there, shall we?
He's literally run off for a sneeze.
Oh, I think that gives a really nice insight, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it's a
good start. Yeah, it's a good start. This podcast isn't always going to be really fun and interesting, is it? Because we might not do anything in 2 weeks.
I think you'd be surprised though, of like different stuff we've got going on.
Different learnings, that sort of bits involved.
Especially when Maddie's involved as well. She's trialing loads from a marketing standpoint. There's literally so much we can talk about from a marketing standpoint that we've tried that hasn't worked.
Yeah.
Or stuff that we've done that's worked really well. So yeah, she's got loads to add there.
Yeah, it depends how granular we want to get with it, I suppose, doesn't it really? But he's back.
Sorry.
I didn't even hear the sneeze.
I went outside.
We haven't stopped, mate. We've just carried
on. Fair enough. Let's wrap it up there then. That's probably a nice half an hour, isn't it? Yeah, cheers for listening.
Yeah. Catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.